Unfolding Ideas Season 3, Episode 1.1. This is a mini-sode. Now you may be asking, what's a mini-sode and what's the point of the point one? Well, the point one is a mini-sode, and a mini-sode is just a short little episode. They'll be coming along as addendums, corrections, ideas that I want to talk about but can't quite fill an entire 15 minutes worth of regular episode. So for this mini episode on the subject of books, we're going to be talking about John Dies at the End. Specifically, I want to talk about genre mixing. Now, many people, when I tell them I've been reading a great book, it's called John Dies at the End. It's a horror comedy. They look at me like I'm a little bit crazy. Like, how do you have horror and how do you have comedy at the same time? And you know what I say to them? I say, that is a perfectly valid question. How do you have comedy and horror at the same time? So how do you manage to get horror in there with the comedy? David Wong manages to blend the comedy and horror genres by keeping the stakes real. He does it in a very subtle and effective way by keeping the stakes high. The stakes are kept high. The comedy side of things is fairly straightforward. The book is humorously written. Jokes are funny. Like there's this moment in the book where John and Dave learn is coming to and they get into an argument over whether and ultimately they just devolve into a classic. Even though the characters are thrown into ludicrous circumstances, the stakes, the threat that the characters are faced with remains real within the context of the novel. Even though they're fighting giant monstrosities made entirely out of frozen meat, the story still communicates well the idea that they are under very real threat of physical bodily harm and that they might not be coming out of these circumstances. Beyond that, a lot of the horror stems from a cosmological or existential horror, similar to H.P. Lovecraft. The idea that the main characters are coming to the realization that no matter how witty or funny or involved their lives may be, they are just insignificant bugs in the face of the ultimate reality of time and space. Much of the comedy comes directly from the characters as they crack wise, trying to cope with the horrors that they're faced with and the new understanding of the universe that they gain as reality unfolds around them.
What else should I say about it?
So, did he stick some comedy into some horror or some horror into a comedy? Doesn't really matter. As many Frankenstein and Dracula films have shown us, horror doesn't come from the monsters themselves. It comes from the threat. So that's it, because the horror stems from danger. By keeping that element of danger intact, the horror is maintained even through the comedy. And that's it, just a tiny little tidbit. Thanks for watching. Yeah, that's a beard. That's a real beard.